Wild Review. I'm the Wild Reviewer, and today I'm going to review a thing. Have you ever given a review on something and years later you wonder if what you said still holds up? Well, I have! Hi there, I'm the Wild Reviewer, or at least I was told that's who I am, and this is Rewild, a sequel series to an old review show I used to do called The Wild Review. It ran for 6 seasons from 2015 to 2018, and some of the things that I've talked about, I have different opinions on. Or maybe I don't. That's the whole point of this series. If you are watching this, then that means you are joining me on an adventure as we are going to take a journey into my past to see if what I said in a previous Wild Review episode still holds up. We're gonna make comments about how young I used to look and stupid I used to sound sometimes. It kinda depends on what I was talking about. So, unless you have somewhere else important you need to be, which I highly doubt, seems like you're gonna be taking a journey with me into the past. This is the Wild Review Rewild.
Wild like wild.
I thought the name was cool. Hello, welcome to the Wild Review. I'm the Wild Reviewer, and welcome back to Rewild, a series where I take a look at some of my older content and make comments about them. I was looking to make this shorter. Oh no, I'm wearing a green shirt. Am I gonna blend in with the background? This isn't even the same green shirt. On today's episode of Rewild, we're taking a look at an episode of the Wild Review where I discussed my favorite films. Specifically, my top 5 favorite films of all time at the time. At this point in time, it was the year 2018. It's been close to 5 years, if not already 5 years, and that has obviously changed. I have seen a lot of movies since then. So we're going to take a watch, we're going to take a listen to my top 5 favorite films. I'm going to make a comment of these films, and then at the end I'm going to list my top 5 favorite films at the moment. And I gotta be honest, they could possibly change. Because with all the films that I have seen, I'm finding it extremely harder now to make a list of my top 5 favorite films. I think it would just make sense at this point to take the list of every film that I've ever seen and just rank them. This way I have a better understanding as to which film I really liked and didn't like. But with that said, let's not worry about that now. I do have a list of my own, and I'm very satisfied with it. So we're going to talk about that at the end. But for now, let's see what my favorite films were back in 2018. At number 5, we have Super Size Me. Now, I know what you're gonna say. You don't know what this is. You've never heard of it. Is this a comedy film? Is it for children? No, it's not. It's none of those things. But it is a little funny, but it's, I don't know, maybe it can also be for kids. No, you probably haven't seen it before. Super Size Me is a documentary made in 2004 that was created and stars Morgan Spurlock. In this documentary, we watch Spurlock go through a 30-day experiment that he's created where he eats nothing but McDonald's for a full month. Now, I know that sounds a bit ridiculous. In fact, one may even ask, hey, can't you die if you do that? And yeah, you can. It's a lot of cholesterol you're eating, basically. With this experiment, Spurlock has to follow a few rules. His 3 meals of the day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, need to be McDonald's meals. He has to consume every item on the menu at least once, and when he's offered something to be supersized, he has to take that offer. Hence the title Super Size Me. Also, he can only ingest items that are offered on the McDonald's menu. Any other types of food, like from Burger King or Wendy's, that is completely prohibited from this experiment. With all that said, one could probably ask themselves, why? Who would do this? And the answer is Morgan Spurlock. He would do this. The reason why he's doing it is to kind of show what fast food can do to you if you were to consume a lot of it in the matter of a month, which is exactly what he does. For 30 days, he eats nothing but McDonald's and walks around town like a normal man would without anybody realizing what he was doing to himself. Super Size Me was pretty good. Back then, I wasn't that much into documentaries, but I gotta admit, in the recent years, I've kinda started to like them. In some cases, like Super Size Me, documentaries can actually be really intriguing, especially if it focuses on something really unique, something you would never think of, and I would have never thought to do a film where I eat fast food for a whole month. I remember when I watched it in my health class, and I gotta admit, it was the only thing in my health class that I actually really enjoyed. I'm sorry, teacher, if you were watching this, if you magically have stumbled upon this video. Your health class was good. I just wasn't that interested, but I liked Super Size Me. I really liked it. And now, because I know I'll probably be asked about it, yes, I have seen Super Size Me 2, which is nothing like Super Size Me 1. This one focuses on chicken, and he opens up his own chicken restaurant, which is very healthy, but at the same time still enjoyable in terms of fast food. Now, I remember I looked up the restaurant that he opened up, and on the top of my head, I don't know if it is still open today, especially since with the COVID pandemic and the lockdown, it's very questionable whether or not the restaurant is still open today. But I think it was really interesting. It wasn't as interesting as the first film because I have a little more interest in seeing this guy do a social experiment rather than trying to open up his own business. That could just be categorized with any other documentary, honestly. But it was still really enjoyable. I really liked it. And if you've seen Super Size Me, you should definitely check Super Size Me 2 out. The only thing I'm going to inform you is that there are some scenes that might be a little disturbing, especially if you are a vegetarian or vegan. I gotta be honest, there are some scenes that I personally were not a fan of, but I saw them, and they live in my head now. So that's a little warning. In terms of raising them, like, we don't actually see the butchering part, but if you're just not a fan of that stuff, I would just definitely be advised that that is in this film, so just a little heads up. At number 4 we have, and I'm not being sarcastic here, The Room. There's no sarcasm. This is one of my favorite films. Yes, I understand. It is really bad. The acting is horrible. It's one of the world's best, worst movies ever. And that is why I like it. I still really like The Room. I should mention this. All these films, I do still really like. I remember the list of films that I gave, and I still really enjoy all of these films. The Room, especially, I really enjoy. I know at the time maybe it could have been seen as a joke. I did do a full review on The Room, and I know when it comes to putting it on a list of my favorite films, many can scratch their heads and just come to the conclusion that it's obviously a joke that it's on there, but it honestly isn't. The Room is absolutely horrible, but it is probably the only horrible film that I don't mind watching over and over again. And to add on with this film, much like Super Size Me, I have seen The Disaster Artist. I remember when talking about The Room, either on the video or maybe with somebody else, I may be getting it confused. I haven't seen that video in a while either. But I have been asked, have I seen The Disaster Artist? And I have seen The Disaster Artist. It was great. Again, it falls into another category of films that I haven't really been that big of a fan of. But that's another thing that I've kind of grown out of. Again, I'm only specifically talking about one kind of film when it comes to that category. But I thought The Disaster Artist was great, and it's exactly what I thought the story of The Room would be like. The Room is just a huge masterpiece that was always intended to be a masterpiece by Tommy, but not in the way that he expected. But honestly, fame is fame. I still really like the film. And at number 3 we have Shrek! I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scream like that. Shrek! I still love Shrek. Not any of the others, the first one. I mean, the others are alright, but the first one is the best one. If you don't know Shrek by now, you're just not living. I know Shrek is another meme online, just like The Room, and a lot of people can be sarcastic when they say they like Shrek, but I actually find enjoyment with Shrek because, first off, it's funny, second off, the story's really clever, and third, the animation isn't that bad. It's not great, but then again, this was the early 2000s we're talking about, so we can expect a bit more better animation once we get Shrek 5, which is a thing that is happening soon. I still love it. It's great. I love Shrek. That's all I'm gonna say on Shrek. I don't want to give any spoilers away. because I don't know, is it still on my list of films? Is this still one of my favorites? I don't know. And at number 2 we have the Lego Movie. Yeah, I know it's for little kids, but I mean, honestly, are you that surprised? It's me we're talking about. When the Lego Movie first came out, I was a bit skeptical about actually watching it, and it wasn't until they started playing it on Cartoon Network that I actually sat down and watched the movie, and I had the song Everything Is Awesome stuck in my head for about 3 days, and then it got out of my head. And then they replayed the Lego Movie, this time on Nickelodeon. And it got stuck in my head again. I still enjoy the Lego Movie. I think at the time it was one of my favorites because it was just always on. They played it on Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network a bunch of times. Maybe they didn't start playing it on Nickelodeon until about a year later, but regardless, I still really like the Lego Movie. It's a cute idea. It's a very original one. The ending I still really like. I guess to add on to what I'm doing in this video by saying what else I've seen in regards to this property, I have seen the second Lego Movie. I saw the second one, or the second part, whatever it was called. The second movie. I have seen the Lego Movie too. Was it great? It was alright. It was a film. I saw it. I haven't seen much of it since. The Lego Movie 2 was a very fitting sequel and a continuing sequel, I guess. But did it really need a sequel? Did it need a sequel? I don't think it did. It's a cute story overall. What annoys me, though, is how Hollywood is seeing how great the Lego Movie was and is now just essentially remaking the Lego Movie in various ways. I mean, we had the Emoji Movie. I think we have a Roblox movie coming up. Is that a thing? Do we have Roblox? There are a few films that are coming up that are very similar to how the Lego Movie was. The Lego Movie started a trend of just a property. It's a film. It's a film and I like it. I still enjoy the Lego Movie. I haven't seen it in a really long time. Probably since before pandemic, honestly. I should give it another watch. I should give it a watch. I want to watch it again. With that said, my number 1 favorite all-time movie is the animated Titanic movie. I just thought that, you know, the way the animation was and the voice acting, like, although I criticized it, I really just admired the way that they told the story of the Titanic, and to be fair, when I was watching it, it did make me tear up a bit. No, I'm kidding! It's The Nightmare Before Christmas. Oh, I've been bamboozled. Like I said before, I made a video on why I like The Nightmare Before Christmas. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's the name of the video itself. As a matter of fact, I actually think I give a list in that video on why I like the movie so much. I could be wrong. It's been a really long time since I've seen it or remember doing it. But to make a short summary without kind of repeating myself, Nightmare Before Christmas is just so creative. I was always fascinated by the way that they were able to mix 2 holidays completely opposite from each other and bring them together. And they kind of gave us a little glimpse to what would happen if these 2 holidays actually mixed together. Well, I'm not going to say anything on The Nightmare Before Christmas, which may hint to you what my current film list consists of. Well, you may have noticed, I'm not sure if you caught on, but the films that I have made a comment about are unfortunately no longer on this list of my favorite films. They have all kind of been pushed down. Not too far, but they're pushed down in terms of my top 5 favorite films. So what are my current top 5 favorite films right now? Well, let's get into it. Hello everybody, this is me currently editing the video. And I just want to point something out that I just noticed. I was going to do this fun little text cut. As you can see, I've just put the same clip that I used in the original favorite movies video, my top 5 favorite movies at the moment. And I was going to put some text updated, like 2022 edition. But I want to make a comment on what you just saw. I don't know why I didn't point this out when I was originally filming. I guess it was because I mostly focused on the films that I put on the list. But it appears that I made it very clear twice within
just a few seconds of each other that this list is my favorite movies list at the moment, first being blue and then in red. And I'm not quite sure why I did that. Just pointing that out. I'm sure there was a reason, or maybe there wasn't. Maybe this was a typo. I don't know, and I don't remember. I just wanted to point that out. That's a little strange. Anyway, here are my top 5 favorite movies at this moment, this year's list.
So, at number 5, we have Avengers Infinity War. 2018 is the year that I really started to get into the MCU films. Now, we may talk about the MCU at a later date. There has been so much stuff that has come out, obviously, since 2018, which is when I properly stopped doing the Wild Review. I don't have any plans to talk about the only Marvel video I've ever done on the Wild Review in this season, but maybe that'll be something that I will look at next season. If you'd like to check that out, you can leave me a comment saying that you would like to see that. Maybe that'll influence me to do it. But I have gotten really into the story. I found the idea that all these films are truly connected really fascinating, much like how I guess everybody else finds this to be fascinating. And Infinity War was my 5th MCU film and my first Avenger film. Believe me, I was confused as all hell when I watched it. That being said, the experience was not ruined at all by the fact that I didn't know who many of these characters were or their connection. It's not the best thing to jump onto a movie series when you have something like Infinity War that has so much lore behind it. That's essentially like jumping into the Harry Potter world at movie 7. Like, who does that? Obviously me. Knowing me, I would do that. My first Star Wars film was Episode 7. Look at that. But Infinity War, I mean, like, I think everything's been said about it already. Now, and I have seen every MCU film since then, and I made sure to watch Infinity War once I had watched everything else again, and right before Endgame came out. Endgame also was almost on this list, but I had to be one of them because I wasn't bumping them up any further. Infinity War just has great writing. It's just beautifully put together. And it properly combines stories that have been told for the last 9 years at this point and brings them together in such a great story. I remember the ending of the film, which obviously, I mean, everybody knows by now what the ending of Infinity War was, but if you haven't seen it, I'm obviously not going to say anything, though I'm pretty sure everybody's seen it by now. The end of Infinity War, my very first screening of it, I was just wowed. I was just in shock, I was confused, and I was just like, oh my god, they actually did that. So you got about 3 more years, buddy, until you finally see that happen. Wait till you get introduced to Marvel. So yeah, Infinity War is definitely number 5, although Endgame and Infinity War definitely trade places at times because there are a lot of things in Endgame that are also really great. A few things bug me in Endgame, but again, it jumps back and forth to being my 5th or 6th favorite film, but right now I'm satisfied with it being my 6th favorite. Infinity War is definitely my 5th favorite. That might change tomorrow, of course. And at number 4, we have Shrek 2. Shrek 2. Why Shrek 2? Because Shrek 2 is the best Shrek of them all. Aside from the first Shrek. That could also be debatable. Shrek 2 has great music, a great story, and it is the perfect sequel to already a perfect film. A lot of people put Shrek 2 over the first Shrek, and you know what, let me get my number 3 out of the way since we're talking about Shrek, because it's gonna mash together already. I'm gonna end up repeating myself. My number 3rd favorite film is Shrek. I put Shrek over Shrek 2. I mean, I could easily put Shrek 2 over Shrek. That's an easy answer to my number 3rd film, or even the ranking of the Shrek films. But here's the thing, I can watch Shrek 1 over and over again and not get bored by it. I remember everything that happens in Shrek. Shrek 2, I don't remember everything. In fact, there are scenes that I get mixed up. Sometimes I forget why Puss in Boots is there. Sometimes, I mean, when I see it, I remember, but I often forget that he was hired to take care of Shrek and Donkey from... He was hired by the fairy godmother? Is that it? I keep thinking it's Fiona's dad, honestly. But they're both great films. They are both absolutely amazing. But Shrek 1, I can definitely watch over and over again, and it'd still be my favorite film. Shrek 2 has a great ending. I think we all agree the hero song that is sung, that's a great piece of music. They're just fun films. Shrek is a great film series. Oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. I haven't seen Shrek 3 in a very long time, and Shrek 4 is fine. I like the first Shrek. And at number 2, we have a film that I am still to this day debating whether or not it is better than the film I have at number 1. I go back and forth a lot, and I have gone back and forth a lot since I saw it in December. But for right now, it's staying in number 2 because I cannot betray my number 1 pick. Number 2 right now is Spider-Man No Way Home. I haven't talked about my Spider-Man fandom that comes out of me a lot. I'm not the biggest Spider-Man geek, but I am a Spider-Man fan. I've seen all 3 Tobey Maguire films. I've only seen the first Andrew Garfield film, and that was only just a few months ago. I actually had no interest in seeing Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man until No Way Home. I haven't seen the cartoons of Spider-Man. I remember I saw some of the earlier cartoons of Spider-Man, though. I had a Spider-Man VHS with some early TV show episodes, but I mean, what... Spider-Man. I mean, he's the character I was worried about the most when it came to Infinity War. I was heartbroken by that scene. I've had this conversation with so many people, but I think Spider-Man No Way Home does something that a lot of films are trying to do nowadays in terms of nostalgia, and the trend that Hollywood is doing now where they're taking something from the past and modernizing it today. Spider-Man No Way Home does it correctly than everybody else, because Spider-Man No Way Home is a multiverse film, and based on things we have seen and heard that have come out of Marvel since Spider-Man No Way Home, because we are currently in the multiverse saga of the MCU right now. In the terms of the multiverse story that they're doing and what happens at the beginning of Spider-Man No Way Home, it just makes sense, especially when it comes to the casting. Why would you do a multiverse film and cast new people in the role of Spider-Man when you already have 2 faces, 2 iconic faces that have played Spider-Man, and people are asking to return as Spider-Man, which is actually very fitting for both Tobey and Andrew, because Tobey was supposed to get a Spider-Man 4 and Andrew never got a Spider-Man 3. 2 films that even to this day people are asking for, especially with the success of No Way Home. And this film essentially feels like they both got their sequel that maybe isn't super focused on them, but the 2 of them are probably the biggest stars in this film. I think there'd be riots on the streets if both Tobey and Andrew were not in it. It's just such a really enjoyable film. I wanted to watch it again in theaters, but I didn't get the chance to. William Dafoe is also the best villain ever. Like, he goes at the top of my all-time favorite villains ever in a story, ever. He's great. He's the perfect villain, and I love the fact that we got to see more of him without a mask. It's just great. It's a beautiful piece of cinema, and I absolutely love it, and I want to see it again. I like it. And that ending was so sad. It's sad. Finally, if it wasn't very obvious, my number 1 is The Nightmare Before Christmas. It's still The Nightmare Before Christmas? Yes, it's still The Nightmare Before Christmas. I honestly feel bad not giving it the number 1 spot, because I just really enjoy it. I mean, even comparing it to Spider-Man No Way Home, which could easily become my new number 1 favorite film. I feel like that Nightmare has something there that Spider-Man No Way Home doesn't have. And that's a nostalgia feel to me. Which is ironic, because No Way Home is very nostalgic. It has the old actors in it, which is great. But I didn't grow up with those films. I grew up with The Nightmare Before Christmas. I remember discovering it, and I remember the joy it brought me to actually see the story. And it's just such a perfect story. And for that, it's still number one for me. I don't think I need to go over anymore how much I really enjoy Nightmare Before Christmas. I'm not even considering doing a rewild on The Nightmare Before Christmas, because you all know what I'm going to say about it. I know what I'm going to say about it. I reviewed the film so many times that it's kind of ridiculous at this point. I still really like The Nightmare Before Christmas. I really enjoy it. But it battles with Spider-Man No Way Home from time to time. I'm not going to lie about that. And with that said, that's all I have to say in regards to my top 5 favorite films at the moment. These are my new top 5 favorite films, and those were my old top 5 favorite films. Like, I still really enjoy all those other films like Super Size Me and the Lego Movie in the Room. They're just not top 5 anymore, and that's okay, that happens. I've seen so many other films that sometimes they lose their original spot. And yes, that means I did just see Shrek 2 for the first time, just last year. And as I continue to watch more films, it's probably going to change again, and again, and again. The Nightmare Before Christmas may not be my number 1 favorite film of all time at one point in my life, but that hasn't happened yet. For now, though, that's all I have for you in terms of this episode of Rewild. If you'd like to check out the original review, the link to that video will be in the description below, as well as a playlist to Season 1 of Rewild, if you'd like to check out that playlist. Why was that so hard for me to say? That's all I have for you today on this episode of Rewild. Thank you so much for watching, and if you have any suggestions on any future Wild Review episodes you would like me to re-look back at, give me a suggestion down in the comments below, an episode that I haven't taken a look at yet. Again, I have a few of these already lined up. I got the whole season planned, but I'm always up for looking at some other ones, so just give me a little comment, and maybe I'll check it out. For now, though, this is where we part ways. I'll see you next week for another episode of What I'm Doing Now. Thanks again for watching The Wild Review. I'm The Wild Reviewer, and you just saw me review a thing.
Wild like wild.